Try it for yourself. If you tried creating one habit for 21 days and you got absolutely nothing out of it, let me know. It won't happen. I know it won't happen, but I want people to try it for themselves, because when people try it for themselves, they get that good feel factor. They start to see the benefit. They start to see the ripple effect, and they start to realize you're not talking BS.
Welcome to the Sound Leadership Podcast for the silent superheroes of L&D, HR and leadership. Hit subscribe, give us a follow and leave your comments. Kat, thank you so much for coming on the Sound Leadership Podcast and making the journey in to see us. We appreciate your time coming to do that.
Oh, I'm thrilled to be here.
Look, I've listened to some of your podcasts, which are fantastic, and we'll talk about those in a little bit. And you also did a TEDx talk as well, which I've watched a couple of weeks ago. And there was so much in there that resonated with me. And without making this podcast about my journey, I will share some of that, because some of the stuff that you implement around your habits is something I'm trying to do myself as well. And then your TED talk came at a good time for me. So hopefully it has the same impact on our audience as well, and for the listeners. Tell us a little bit about what that experience was like, going on a TEDx talk.
What can I tell you about the TEDx? Well, so I got invited to speak at one of the biggest events in Bulgaria called the Future of Work Summit in Sofia. And that was already quite a lot. 10 minutes. That was the shortest keynote I've done so far since I've been doing this for 3 years. And then I get a phone call from a random Bulgarian number 7 days before I'm due to fly to this event, asking me if I want to do a TEDx talk. And it just came out of nowhere. And obviously, when you're a speaker, you know that doing a TEDx is one of those moments that, you really hope is going to come around at some point. And I'd applied for a couple of TEDx's before that and not heard anything back. So I just decided to leave it to, someone else to decide when I was going to do that. And he said it's on Saturday, and this was Tuesday. And I just thought, how am I going to make this happen? And not only was it that Saturday, so I didn't even have a week to get ready for it. It was also in a completely different part of Bulgaria. So I had to rearrange all my travel plans. And I definitely, and this is where I love coming on podcasts like this, because I had that moment where I'm having a conversation with the other voice in my head. And it was definitely, I'm really glad now that I've been through what I've been through, because I was able to be louder than the other voice, because the other voice was saying, just delay it, do it another time, you won't be ready, it won't be good enough. And my voice said, do you know what, if it's half good enough, let's go for it. And it was so funny actually just making that journey to the city Plovdiv, because I had to get on a bus and couldn't communicate with anyone and just kept sitting in other people's seats, and the whole thing was quite comical, even down to my dress on the day had a rip in it. I had a big hole in the back of my dress. Oh, no. I was getting changed in a bus depot toilet. I mean, people think motivational speaking is so glamorous. It really isn't, but I did it, and it was like an incredible experience. And I think sometimes you have to take the ego out of it and just say, why am I here? I'm here because I want to share my story, but also the power of what I'm talking about, what I'm practicing every day in my life, which is the power of one small positive habit change. So who cares if it's not as polished as I would like it to be?
The only person that knows how polished it is supposed to be in your own mind is you anyway. I love the fact of sometimes, do you know what, the best way to do it is when you get chucked in the deep end and just go. And I agree with the voice bit as well. And then we bring in, and everyone, and we've done a previous episode on imposter syndrome, and we talk about that. And it's trying to go, okay, that's fine. So I have those negative thoughts about it. But hang on a sec. I know what I'm talking about. My knowledge, my experiences allow me to get my message across, and I'm a good communicator. I'll be absolutely fine with this. And actually 4 or 5 days prep is probably enough. Otherwise we start to overthink things and we build them up too much. We aim for perfection and we get ourselves in all sorts of problems. So I'd recommend to you, the listener, to go and have a look at this, and we'll put the link in the description as well. It's a great video, and I'd certainly took a lot away from it.
I also think the power of focusing on that last bit you said there, Kat, was what I can give, that my actual core message I want to deliver to the people that are in front of me, the people that will watch it. And very often what holds us back is that whether people like us, have I got enough time, is it perfect and everything, that's completely out of our control. But just that focus on that message and those people in front of you, that as a minimum, they're going to be informed about what I'm really passionate about. Yeah. I think that's so powerful.
And I think one other nugget of wisdom I'll share, because it's something that's been really important for me. And I don't know if this is happening to you guys now, but I'm getting approached more and more from people who either want to get into speaking or want to work with corporates or want to start their own thing. And they're stuck in that fear of, not having the confidence to start whatever it is they want to start, or they've started and they've got mega imposter syndrome. And what I have learned and what I say to them is, you are doing a disservice to the people you're trying to help by stopping yourself. So I remember I was sitting on that bus feeling very strange and thinking, I have no idea who these people are. I have no idea how this is going to go. I don't know if people are even going to understand me because it's in a different country. And it's not in the capital city. I'm not working with all the businesses that I, will be working with the following week at the summit. So I there was definitely a lot of very weird, fearful feelings and thoughts coming up. But then I just kept saying that to myself. But what if one person in that room, it helps them? What if one person watches the TEDx after and it helps them? And I know how much it's helped me, which is why I started all of this. So, remembering that you are doing a disservice if you do not put yourself out there, record that video, start that business, take that leap of faith.
Oh, that's great advice. And something I always come back to, one of my mantras is in terms of that, and especially when I was younger, I was very shy and the thought of public speaking was horrendous. But I was going with, if I make 1% difference to one person that's listening, we're winning. And it will always be more than that. You'll always have a bigger impact of that because of the story you've got to tell, because of your experiences or your knowledge. But when I go in with that mindset, which is almost like the minimum side of what could happen, it releases all the pressure. And then you just go and be yourself and you deliver your story, and someone's gonna get something from it. Kat, tell us a little bit about what you currently do then. Give us an insight into your world at the moment.
So it's funny actually, and I think it's important to share how it all started, because it didn't start how it is now, and it never does it? So I thought so my previous role, I was a CEO and I was very stressed. I was trying to turn this organization around, and I knew there was something inside of me that needed to come out. I didn't know what it was. At the time, I actually thought it was children that was missing from my life. And it turns out it was this purpose. Anyway, the Morning Game Changer was born. And I thought that the model was to coach stressed out people like me, essentially. I thought I could sell coaching services to stressed out execs, CEOs, directors. And in 8 months, I made 500 quid. And I just got myself into massive debt. It just didn't go how I expected it to go. And the whole time I was living in a state of fear and panic. And I was job hunting, and I just thought, oh God, I've done the wrong thing. I've taken this leap of faith. I started this business and it's not working. And it was, but prior to leaving my role, I'd started posting about positivity. And before I started, those few months before I left, I didn't post anything original on LinkedIn. And I think that's how a lot of people used to use LinkedIn, just reposted company updates, because I didn't realize it was my LinkedIn. I thought it was my company almost owned me. And so I never posted anything, definitely nothing personal, but definitely any of my thoughts. And I'd read something, and I'd started working with a coach behind the scenes, and I realised that in order to build something myself, I needed to start sharing my own thoughts. So I did that, and it was kind of I was literally at this crisis point where I thought, right, I'm going to have to get a job and just give this up. I've obviously gone on this road that I shouldn't have gone on. And my old boss, who I used to work for from Norway, literally phoned me up, and he said, I've seen your positivity stuff. I quite like it. Do you want to come and speak to 100 Norwegians on a yacht in London? And I was like, you're going to pay me? was my first thought, because I thought, I'm not doing anything else for free. Because as you can imagine, during this 8 months, I've been doing loads of things for free to try to get the business going. And he said, yeah, I'll pay you. And he basically paid me the same amount that I'd earned in the last, almost a year. So I said, right, I'll be there. And that was when what I do now was born, really. I realised that for me to share what I've learned about habits and the impact that just one habit can make on you personally and professionally, I need to get in front of teams. I need to get in front of large groups of people, because for lots of reasons, but that day, the kind of the feedback and the energy in the room, and then the conversations after of people saying, do you know what, I've just never looked at it like that. Like, what you say isn't original, but it makes so much sense, and we just need a moment to realise it. And that's essentially what I'm doing. I'm cutting through the noise. I do lots of my work in person. I do it online, somewhat reluctantly, but I do it online because I love to work with people and all sorts of teams. And ultimately, I'm just getting people just to stop for a moment. And I'm taking them on a little bit of a journey, a day in the life of themselves, to really look at what it is they are doing every day. What are those little choices they're making that are almost so insignificant we don't even notice them? How are they impacting them, both at work and at home, on their relationships, on their health, and then get them to make a change? So two big things: think differently and take some positive action.
Yeah, I like that. Funnily enough, Darren and I were talking about this morning before we started recording about, I'm a big believer in when something's not quite playing out the way you want it to be, or we've gone through some adversity, there'd be people out there that listening to this that may have lost their job, through redundancy or something like that. If we sit back and do nothing, the situation's probably going to get worse. Whereas if we take some positive action, small steps, doesn't need to be a big thing at all, but just that positive action, and it's amazing when you do that, get proactive, things start to come your way, and it's amazing the doors that open up. The other thing I'm intrigued by there is that it sounds to me like you found your purpose and you found your message. And when I was looking at your, watched the TED Talk, and I watched, listened to a couple of your podcasts, it was really clear. The message comes through every time. When you were going through that period, did you take time to stop? Because, if the money that you talk about that you've earned in 8 months is not enough to survive on, I'm guessing. What did you take yourself away somewhere? Did you find moments of reflection? Like, how did you get to that point where you went, I know exactly what my message is now?
So it started before then. So, and this is what's quite interesting, I think, about my story and my experience, is that I would never have started this mission if I hadn't started a positive habit. So the habit came first, and it took, for me to pretty much break myself for the habit to almost be the thing that rebuilt me. But even after my, life explosion, as I call it, in 2016, I still carried on living that way of life, albeit in a different city with, without the people I had in my life before. But I was still running very, very quickly in my life, and I still waking up and doing those unhealthy things first thing in the morning and last thing at night. But there was this moment where I was woken up at 5 a.m. for a few days running. And that was the moment where I thought, right, this is the space I need to figure out what it is I want to do. Because I was essentially sort of stuck. And I think a lot of people get stuck in life, but they're running so quickly they don't realise they're stuck, or they don't know what bit of it they're stuck on. And it's, it's really sad, but also there's a lot of opportunity when I talk to people who are stuck in jobs they don't like, relationships they don't want to be in, habits that are making them ill or feel really negative or impacting their mental health, because I can totally relate to how you end up in those positions. So for me, it was journaling. And even the word journaling I used to fight with. And in fact, I still don't have a very good relationship with the word, because I think there are lots of words around mental health and well-being that have these toxic connotations. So instead, I just kind of have retrained my brain to think about these things in a different way, and actually just see it as like brain dumping, or like just putting all of those thoughts that are swimming around your mind on a piece of paper. So I tried for ages on all those different journals. I must spend, 200 quid on journals. And they don't work for me. What I need is just a notebook, just a blank notebook that I can just write my thoughts in. and when I need to. And for those first few months, I was just writing things down, and I decided to take the pressure away because I really wanted to quit my job and start this thing. And I decided to be a bit more sensible, even though it didn't work out as I wanted it to. I decided to just, let's just get these thoughts out. Let's just give yourself 10 minutes every day. It's non-negotiable. Do it before you pick up your phone, do anything else. And it was so strange how it happened, but obviously now so obvious, that this clarity, the fog lifted, the clarity was there. And it was like, well, this is changing my life. And then it came like exercise and all these other positive habits that I now do. And through doing those positive habits, I kind of came through the fog and then realised that this is what I want to do. And also I'm in a relationship that isn't good for me. And, all these other things I started to realise. But then I obviously could only tackle one thing at a time. So it's now like this lifelong journey for me. This is how I want to live my life. And of course, we often have those dips, don't we, where we fall back into those cloudy moments. But I will never, ever end up in those such severe situations again because my level of consciousness is so high now.
And I think that's, it's quite an inspirational story that we have a model awareness responsibility. And I think by journaling, you're creating your awareness. You're creating that, what is my brain thinking? That then starts opening those options out that actually I don't have to live my life how I'm currently living my life. And I think that's sometimes the blocker for people. And, listening to some of your stuff as well, that's what you're able to do to people is go, let's create some awareness for you. Now, you might carry on living how you already live, but that's your choice. But what I want to do is I'm going to open up another picture like I done for myself and go, what am I going to choose to do next with my life? Because when after 8 months you only had £500 come in, you still took full responsibility. You didn't blame the world outside. You didn't blame the business that you left. You went, what am I going to do about it? Am I going to look for another job? I got that offer come in. But that's what creating that awareness and the options yourself creates, that personal responsibility of how do I want to live going forward? What changes do I need to make?
Yeah, and I think it's that shift, isn't it, from life is being done to you rather than you are creating your life. And I didn't realise that was even a thing. I thought that life should go in this particular order, and if you didn't, then there was something wrong. And I don't think we realise, and that's why I love this work, because it's almost like holding up a mirror or waking people up a little bit. It doesn't have to be like that. You don't have to wake up tired every day. You don't have to be constantly in a state of panic or stressed. You don't have to have a relationship that doesn't fulfill you and doesn't make you feel good.
Totally agree. Yeah, totally agree with all that. We're going to dig into the habits a little bit later on. Something that stood out to me when you were doing your TED talk, and you said it will start a little dark and then it gets sunny. And which I love the phrase anyway in terms of painting the picture for us. And the addition to that, it gets sunny and yellow. And you wore yellow shoes and your website's yellow.
Yeah.
And your phone cover is yellow.
Yes.
Just talk to us a little bit, because I'm guessing that's intentional, that you've chosen that colour for a reason. Go on, give us a bit of insight into that.
I think... to be honest, I'm not like a branding expert at all, and I think there are lots of people who are much better at this than me in the world. But I know two things, and one is that in order to make a change, we first have to accept the reality of the situation, where that's like personally, what's going on in the world, what's going on in the workplace. That's the dark bit for me, because there is a very dark situation going on right now, and a lot, and I talk about this a lot, that organisations are doing more than they've ever done before. We as individuals have more access to mental health, wellbeing, resilient apps, like tools than we've ever had before. But what's ironic is that people are more stressed, more overwhelmed and more exhausted. So, clearly putting a baby goat on someone's back and, doing some goat yoga in the office isn't the solution, and that's not working. But I do, the yellow is about the opportunity, the sunny side of life. And obviously, it's deeper than that, isn't it? Because you can't have the black without the yellow, you can't have the dark without the light. But the yellow is much more prominent because I think that there's so much opportunity for us to transform ourselves, our lives through our habits. And of course, you know, I'm a big fan of those colours. So they were obvious, easy brand colours to choose. But someone also told me, this is another lead. I'm probably going to share all my leadership nuggets now rather than at the end. So try to remind me of them. But someone told me really early on in my career, long before I started this, wear something that people will remember you by. And, you know, those yellow shoes, you know, they're beautiful yellow shoes. I bought them in the sale from Reese. Obviously, no one wants to wear yellow shoes, but they're not shoes for going out. They're shoes for walking on a stage and walking off a stage, let's just be clear. But I wear them to be remembered by. I don't want people to forget this information that I'm sharing. And I think those sort of things help you to develop, you know, your brand, but also, you know, help people to remember things. And something else I do in all my physical talks is I give everybody a habit tracker, bright yellow card. And I say to people, why have I brought you a bright yellow card? Why do I throw bright yellow balls into the audience? I want you to remember. And, you know, part of habit creation is the cue. It's the reminder. You know, you've put water in front of me today. I'll probably drink it because it's in front of me, because I'm being reminded of it. If you've got a habit tracker where you've written out your commitment and how it's going to change your life and you stick it on your fridge, you're going to remember that conversation, that information. But also it has this lovely ripple effect because your family will see it, your colleagues might see it, and this happens. And this is the beautiful thing about what I'm doing.
And you're training your brain, aren't you, that when you start to see that yellow, what you want is them to think about their habits. So every time they see yellow, and we know that the sun's going to come out every day, so we know that colour's going to be in the sky, actually, because the brain will then go, I've got to do that habit. And even if I haven't got that water in front of me, where is my water? So then I can get it there. And I think that's then really powerful, that you're making it easier for people to maintain those habits from it.
I was going to pick up on that ripple effect as well, and I'll share a change that I've made recently that is, I was away on holiday for 2 weeks, and I needed to change some stuff in my life. So I needed to change how productive or effective or helpful I was being at home. I've got 2 young kids in the morning, because I think very similar to the things that you're talking about, Kat, where slow to get going in the morning and then not really spending any quality time with the kids, because my first task that I've got to do is get ready for work and then go to work. And I've made a really significant change for me, is that I've now, I wake up at 6 o'clock, alarm goes off at 6. My thing is that I have to be downstairs exercising by 6:15. So I can't press the snooze button. I can't lay in bed a little bit longer, because to me, and this is just my commitment to myself, that's a failure. Now, it's okay sometimes, and there's times where, for example, this week I've been travelling around a lot and I had to leave the house by 6:30 in the morning. That's okay. So I forgive myself. That's okay not to do it that day, but I did exercise that night. But it's about the discipline around it. And the reason I'm just mentioning this now, because you mentioned the ripple effect. What's happened recently, so my son, who's 6, he gets up about 6:30 anyway. He's been coming downstairs, seeing me exercising, and he missed it. I think it was this morning, actually. He missed it because he slept in a little bit. And he said, have you done your exercise? And then he was upset because he missed it. But the bigger impact of that is then I'm role modelling positive behaviours to my son. Get up, get going. And I said to Darren the other day, I love that thought process of, I'm up before the rest of the world. I know it's not technically true, but I'm up and at it. And by 7 o'clock, I've closed my exercise ring on my watch and I'm off and I'm ready to go and I'm full of energy. But it's that ripple effect. It's far greater than just the physical benefits, to me.
Yeah, it is. And that's why I want to really, really grow this mission now. I want to get on bigger stages. I want to work with more teams. I want to work with people individually because of this very thing. And I think it's so easy to think, oh, what's a small bit of exercise going to do in the morning? And I think it's really becoming more and more naive now. But the only way to really believe it is to experience it yourself. So doing work with leadership teams is one of my core focuses now, because when they experience it, and actually I'm working with this amazing team in Bulgaria, it's actually IBM. And I started off by working with the leadership team, and there's one guy in particular, and he, like a lot of people, has got a treadmill in his house, but it just is used as an extended washing line. And I don't think he could really believe the difference that just spending a few minutes on it, walking or running, has made. And I know someone else, actually, similar story to you, who started walking actually every day on their treadmill in their house. And the wife turned around to him and said, well, if you can do it for 10 minutes, I could do it for 10 minutes. And the kids actually made fun of him in the beginning. I think his kids are older than yours. And then they sort of stopped making fun of him when they saw that he stuck to it. And the reason he stuck to it, and this is another thing that I talk about a lot, is just he did it for 10 minutes. And when you do something when you commit to something for 10 minutes, you can always find 10 minutes. Even at 8 o'clock at night, you can still do it for 10 minutes. And then if you do it for longer, amazing. But if you just do 10 minutes, you've still done something. And it's so much more powerful than the endorphin release of the 10 minutes of exercise. Because that's the other thing that I often have really good debates with audiences about, is, well, that's not long enough. And I'm like, what book did you read that in? You didn't read it in a book, because it's not even true. Of course, and I'm not a scientist, and I'm not a researcher of any of this, and I'm just somebody who's had life experience, someone who nearly, caused her own, essentially death through habits, and somebody who's rebuilt it through good habits. That, to be honest, there's all the research already out there about habits. I think if you're just somebody who gives it a try, you will experience it for yourself, and that you will never go back to that way of living.
And how much is the lack of what I probably see at times is reflective time? So people actually might do a new habit, but because they don't create that reflective time of actually, how do I feel after that exercise, or how do I feel after eating a healthier meal, that they stop quickly because actually they don't feel the impact. So how important is that reflective time to create that habit as a long-term sustainable change?
Yeah, that's a good point. I think it is really important, but I think it's really difficult. If you think about how most people live in their lives, and I was watching a video yesterday online of this American teacher who's teaching in like the public system, or what we would call state system. And she just said, I'm like completely, I just cannot believe that these children are coming into school and they are dopamine addicts. And I'm trying to teach an addict who's not getting its hit. And the way she was talking about it, I was like, whoa, that's like, I've never heard anybody talk about dopamine addiction in terms of like children. And then I was looking at some of the comments, and people were saying, well, adults are doing this as well. And I think, if we're honest with ourselves, the majority of the smartphone using population are waking up, looking at their phones with one eye shut, so the body's not even ready for the information. And then every single split second that we have, like we're waiting for our partners while they're going to make a cup of tea and we've paused Netflix, or we're waiting for a bus, or, our kids gone upstairs to get their trainers, we're going to quickly have a check on our emails. Every single moment is filled with information. So we are now living in a state where we're over consuming and underproducing. So that it's no wonder that when I come in and tell people stuff they already know, it's like, whoa, because we are not allowing ourselves 1 second of time to reflect. And I think some of the words that you're saying, like raising awareness and reflection, are words that people don't have time for because we're too busy. So if we find better words, and I think this is also about how, unfortunately, well-being has to be sold in a different way. Because, and that's why I focus on performance that improves people's lives, both personally and professionally. Because well-being, like we've overdone it. We've actually made a lot of bad choices with well-being. We've invested millions of pounds, globally millions of dollars, trillions probably, that has had zero or very little impact.
And is that a little bit, and I might be saying something controversial here, is people are expecting the solution to solve their mental health without sort of taking some of that responsibility and those changes on themselves.
I meet a lot of people who say it's your my mental health is your responsibility. My well-being is your responsibility when they're talking to their employer. And I recorded a podcast on this recently with chief people officer, and we talked about it's actually everyone's responsibility. But ultimately, there's so much you can do when you take personal responsibility. But because it's really hard for a workplace and for a decision maker to help people to focus on things that are not in their control. So how can I possibly come to you and say, you're snoozing your alarm, that's affecting how you show up in my business? I can't tell you to stop snoozing. Can't tell you to stop having as much red wine at weekends, or staying up late playing video games, or checking your phone, or doing work, like whilst your kid's on the swing in the playground. But I can. And that's why people bring me in, because I can have that conversation, because the way I deliver it is not finger pointing. The way I deliver it is, I did this to myself. I nearly broke myself. And also, I think my message is really strong for teams, especially leadership teams, because I was one of the top performing people in my company. You know, I was a global commercial director. And after 7 years, they lost me. And they lost me because of my habits, not because of anything that they could have controlled.
It's that nothing changes if nothing changes, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the power of what we all do in terms of coaching and training and support, and often that external viewpoint, because I totally agree with what you're saying there, is that we can go in and have those hard conversations because we've got that external viewpoint, because we've been through some stuff in our lives, that we've got those experiences, and we can share and we can talk about how we've made these changes. And I'll go back to the point you made earlier on, and I made this point on a recent webinar about resilience, that unfortunately, and I don't like that word particularly, but you have to go through something to build your resilience. And then it's about, well, how can I share my experiences around that allow others to learn from that as well? And if we can help someone a little bit to stop them going through something quite as bad, then that's a good place to be. And Kat, on that note, then should we just talk about 2016? Is that okay?
Yeah.
And just give us a bit of insight into what happened and what that was like for you in that period.
I mean, it was definitely the most traumatic year, I think, of my life, closely followed by losing my mum, I think, when I was 4 years old. But 2016 was pretty horrific. And but it was obviously the wake-up call that was meant to happen to lead me to where I am now. But the reason I'm so passionate about trying to share this message as wide as I possibly can is because, as you just said, I don't think we need to wait to get to these breaking points before we make a change. And there was a guy in one of my sessions once, and he said that he'd had 2 double heart bypasses, and he changed pretty much everything in his life. And now I sort of have this joke with him that I can share that on stage. It's half joke, half story, real story. But we don't want to get to double heart bypass stage. And I think for me in 2016, one of the biggest lessons that I learned was not to take your body and your brain for granted at the price of success. So my father raised me with one very clear message, which was work hard and you'll be successful. And I took that to, literally to the T. So, and broke myself in the process. And I think because I never allowed myself any space to actually be connected to myself. And sometimes when I say that these kind of words, I think, do I sound like I'm from like I'm living up a mountain sometimes? But I actually wasn't in touch with myself. So that meant I was making decisions that were based on other people's thoughts, other people's opinions, societal views, not what actually was right for me. And so in 2016, I married somebody that I shouldn't have married. I was married for just a few weeks. I was, living so chaotically. I used to wake up every single morning, snooze my alarm, and never thought about why I was tired. It was just a given. I was so unconscious in my life that I just accepted I didn't sleep well. I used to tell people I don't sleep well. Now I sleep like a baby almost every single night. I don't wake up in the night hardly at all anymore. And I think, wonder if that's got something to do with my habits, But of course, at the time, I didn't have any space to reflect. So I just used to deflect and blame everything else. Oh, it's because I'm stressed. It's because I'm I've got a big job, it's because I'm getting married, all these things. So every single morning, 4 to 6 times I would hit that snooze, and I didn't have a set time to wake up or go to sleep. It was just minus half an hour of wherever I had to be, on a bus, train, plane, whatever. Then it was straight into my phone, like a lot of people. And I think it's like 100 times worse than it was in 2016. I could feel my heart racing, hence why I nearly had a heart attack. And I would just be stressing myself out. I'd be looking at deadlines, looking at projects. Like I hadn't even woken up at this point, and I would already be in a state of panic and stress. And then I'd be looking for some kind of caffeine hit, because I didn't realise at the time that I could get energy from more natural sources. And I was probably Red Bull's biggest customer, I look now sometimes in my city in Portsmouth, and I see young kids walk into school with cans of Monster that look bigger than them. And I just think, what has happened? So in 2016, it was an accumulation of lots of unhealthy and toxic habits that were quietly building behind the scenes over years. The kind of knowing it's good to exercise but never actually going in those gyms, like knowing I wanted to eat better but then actually never making a time for like prepping or actually checking whether I was eating enough of the right things. So just whatever, Domino's are so incessant with their text messaging, that it would be so easy to order a large Domino's and it'd be there in a few minutes. And alcohol played quite a significant role in my life, because it was the only thing that used to chill me out and like make me less stressed. And I remember my partner at the time saying, you should meditate. I was just like, F off, I don't need to meditate. I'm too busy to meditate. Like the irony of all the things I used to say. And the morning that it started really was when I woke up and I had no feeling whatsoever. Could not feel my legs or my arms. And I was totally terrified. And I think, and it took me a really long time to recover from that. And I actually quit my job in the process because I felt so embarrassed about what happened to me. And even though I worked for the most incredible team, like I worked for a Norwegian company, they were all amazing. And I think they would have understood if I talked to them. But again, it was never a thing. Like we didn't talk about us. We just focused on targets and numbers and clients. So I kind of secretly I moved away, I left everything and I started a new life, and I got headhunted. So I started a new job at the same time. So it all kind of, a lot changed, and they say, you have these 4 balls in life, don't they? And you need to keep, if one drops, like life becomes a bit unbalanced, and basically all of them disappeared. And I remember going to the doctor and he said, I'm surprised you haven't already had a heart attack. Like, I reckon you're about 2 weeks away from one. So that was terrifying, but again, not enough for me to change. Like enough for me to make some big changes in my life, but to still carry on with these habits. So I know how difficult it is to change habits. But at the time, I think I needed I was in like a survival state. I wasn't even living. I was just like, I needed just to get through 1 minute to the next. So I did that. And then obviously the habits came a lot later. But it's funny, I can talk about it now, but obviously at the time it was just the most horrendous experience.
I think there was 2 really important points there as well. I think one is, it's not just one big thing, it's actually that combination of those little habits that we do every day and that can start to build up. Yeah. And I think the other important point is, you can't tell someone to change. So either you've got to realise you need to change to finally get to the point of change. And I think that's what a lot of people will sometimes not see stress in themselves, will see stress in others and go, you need to exercise more. That's not going to change them. They need to realise it themselves to make that sustainable change. Yeah. And at that point, that's when people's lives start to change, is when it comes from deep within instead of an external source.
Yeah. And that's also really irritating for people, isn't it? Because I know one of my friends, he went on a retreat and he'd like not eaten fruit really for like 10 years. And his wife's been like trying to get him to eat fruit. And he comes back and he's like, oh, this woman who made this food, like she made all this amazing food and I've been eating, and she's just like going crazy, like steam coming out of her ears. Like, how come you've never eaten fruit when I've been in front of you? How come you listen to this one woman and now all of a sudden you're eating fruit? And I think it's the same with me. I get people who phone their other half sometimes in like mid talk or just at the end. And they're saying, right, we're getting our phones out of our bedroom tonight. And the poor person on the other end of the phone's like, where's this come from, you know? So you're right. I think we sometimes have to be in the right place at the right time to hear it. I think it really helps, though, the way that someone says it. You know, just saying meditate, exercise doesn't work.
I think often at home, in that home environment, it becomes a little bit more of a tell approach of, you know, you need to put your phone away at night, you need to stop doom scrolling, you need to eat more fruit. And then you look at coaches and keynote speakers, we're not going in with a tell approach. We're not going, you must do this. A lot of it is finding your own way. The other part for me is that, and, you know, when I shared my story, and I think it's very similar for you, Kat, and Darren, I'm sure you've been through similar periods in your life where you've made those changes and habits, and I know you've got some of your positive habits that you do, you know, like reading every day and exercise every day. It's not that I went on holiday for 2 weeks and came back and then the Monday I'm going, my life's changed, everything's different. That was reflection over probably about an 18-month period of going, right, I know I need to make this change, I just don't know my purpose behind it yet, and I don't quite know how that's going to fit. And I went back to, so I was a personal trainer a long time ago. And my thing around exercise was always intensity, regularity and variety. And I went back to that. So when I was personal training, what did I always tell my clients to do? I was like, right, it's those 3 principles. Okay, so how do I now build that into my current life, which is busy? I've got a young family, I've got a job and a social life and all the rest of it. How do I build that in? So it takes a bit of time to get there, but once you fully commit and buy into it, and then it's the discipline around it that keeps those habits in place. Can we talk about some of the real issues that impact work performance? So stress, mental resilience, for example. What do you think are the ones that are being overlooked that we need to do more about that are really affecting performance in the workplace?
So if we start off first of all with what's happening outside before you even get to work. So if you look at how people are waking up, I think that is the first area of focus, because I don't think that's conducive for a healthy, enjoyable life, never mind the negative impact it has on workplace performance. So I had a guy recently, and he's like a prime example of this. He said that he realised, so he's a leader, and he realised he was not productive for the first 30 minutes of every single day because of the way his morning starts. With the kids, with the rushing in the house, with not always eating breakfast or having anything to eat or drink, or like half asleep, you know. And so the first 30 minutes, he's just getting his head in that moment. 30 minutes. Imagine you have a team of 1,000 people. That's a lot of hours. And that's only the first 30 minutes. Then if you talk about during the day, think of how many distractions. There's not one single notification on my phone. No more. But of course, when I was, a director and a CEO, my laptop and my phone and my iPad, everything was pinging for my attention all the time. It's one of the reasons why I really, really want to carry on doing as much work as I can in person. Because right now, we've all got each other's attention. We're not thinking about what we're having for dinner tonight. We're not half hoovering, half feeding the dog, writing an email, writing a report. It's not possible. We can't do that here. And we are actually, by doing things in person and having having to use our attention and develop our skills, we are actually developing our ability to focus, which is not, it's just being stolen all the time. And I can't even believe this, had somebody recently, like a really senior person who wanted to work in the middle of the talk. And I just said, no, you can't. Like, you're either in and you listen and you be part of it and you get something out of it, or you're not. And he was, just really stroppy at the back. But I'm like, but this is, I have to set some boundaries for this. And it's not you and it's not me. It's actually the world that we are living in. So I think a massive part of the challenge with workplace performance and mental health and resilience is the distraction. And the fact that most people, the first thing they do, if they've got an operational role and they work using a laptop, the first thing they'll do is check their emails before they've even decided what they need to get done. So all of a sudden you're on the back foot. If you wake up and you snooze, you're on the back foot. If you answer your emails before you've even done like the most important thing you need to do, you're on the back foot. And then the end of the day, so you can almost like compartmentalize it into 3 parts. What happens in the evening? People still walking into their house where their kids are running up to them, half writing an email, half checking something on their phone. Then they're distracted at home because their phones are walking around with them. Their kids, you know, people are in different rooms on different devices. So I actually think that people are blaming the wrong things. And I also don't think there's enough data on this either. And I think we're looking for like apps or tools or subscriptions to try to solve the problem. And it's actually, the problem is free. The solution, is free. The problem is us. And the solution is also us. And that's why we know that this market is growing so quickly. And it's just, I think it's just going to be incredible now.
Yeah, because wasn't it Scott Walker on one of our previous episodes who said multitasking is literally killing us?
Yeah, I like to say multitasking is multi-wasting. Yeah. I was the queen of it. But, you know, we can't. We want to believe we can do it. So, but really, if you're sitting with the person that you love on the sofa and you're watching something on TV and you're also replying to a message on your phone, you're not actually spending quality time with that person. You're not actually, you know, writing that message clearly, and you're not watching the program, but you're trying to do all 3 at once. And you wonder why, like, people are getting divorced.
Yeah. I mean, we've done in some of our courses a life balance exercise to go, where do you actually spend your time? And that realization when you say, how much of that TV time are you on your phone? How much of that family time are you on your phone? Because actually you're not watching the TV, you're just on your phone. You're not spending it with family, you're just watching the TV, but you're probably not even watching TV because you're on your phone. All of those things of going, let's break that down to how much time are you spending with the people you love, that you think you're spending all that time with them, but you're not. Yeah. Are you happy with that?
And I also want to just say one thing here, that I don't blame you, me, or anyone for this. I think there are other people and other companies to blame for making us so distracted as a society, but I do think it's our responsibility to notice those things, how they're having an impact on our relationships and our health, and to take back control. Like, I am 100% the boss of my phone now. It does not control me. It does, like, I regularly will miss phone calls. People will say, you haven't answered your WhatsApp. I'm like, I don't care. I cannot ever live like that. I can never be on the verge of having a heart attack ever again. And my life is too precious. I love my life too much. So my phone doesn't come in my bedroom anymore. Like, there are lots of kind of small habit changes that I've made around my phone that make it now a positive device and a tool for me. It's still a balancing act, don't get me wrong. Like, I feel like when you're running your own mission and you've got your own business, you have to be on channels that you probably would prefer not to be on. But again, I have to remind myself that's how I'm helping people. So I have to, you know, create content for those platforms. But what I think is really sad is if you remember, especially if you've got someone like a partner in your life who do you remember when they were like their butterflies, and right in the beginning when you chased them and it was hard to, like, you know, get them in the beginning, or like children, you know, what you went through to have children. And we just take it for granted. Like, we take our legs for granted. Like, you're going to wake up and they're just going to get up and take you where you want to be. Like, we need to kind of reconnect with ourselves again. And that doesn't mean sitting on a mountain. That means just having 1 minute or 10 minutes for yourself. And someone said to me the other day, Kat, if I can't give myself 10 minutes to myself a day, then there's something wrong. And I think, yeah, you said it.
That's such a powerful message, that. I'm just going to pick up quickly on something you said, that, so, you know, if we're wasting that first half hour a day and then those notifications, research shows that when we're in full sort of flow state, so when we're fully engaged in the tasks that we're doing, nothing else is going on around us, when we then get distracted, it takes about 20 minutes to get that time back, to get that flow state back. So when we're talking about half an hour at the beginning of the day, and you mentioned there that then throughout the rest of the day, well, how many people are losing at least 20 minutes of non-productive time because of distractions, because of our phone, because of we haven't told our teams that, hey, look, I'm pretty much out of the business for the next half hour. I need to get this task done. So even our communication, building those positive habits around communication of, hey guys, like I'm not available for the next half hour. I really need to get this task done. Let me focus. If you need anything, I'll be back in half an hour, and we're off again. Like it takes up so much of our time, but also our energy as well, because that I'm really concentrating on this, but now I'm really actually thinking about this, or something's popped up on WhatsApp in my, I don't know.
It's like the corner of your eye.
Yeah, I don't know how many rugby groups I'm in, but I mean, there's so many of them, and, which is like really generally Mickey taking fun stuff going on over here, but I'm trying to fully engage in this task for whatever it is that I'm doing. Like, I totally agree with you, Kat. Like, the best thing to do, turn them off, get rid of it. Like, get the phone in the other room whilst you're fully focusing, because it's so damaging.
But one of the things in workplaces that we really need to help people to change is giving the permission to do that. And to be honest, I didn't feel like anyone ever talked about that. I felt like I always needed to have Slack on. I always needed to have my email open. I just don't work like that anymore, but I don't have to answer to anyone anymore. Whereas I think in workplaces, it's not talked about. And also, if you think about when we had lockdown, lots of good habits were created in lockdown, ironically, in the most tragic of circumstances, that have now disappeared. And people are afraid, or even if they diarise like breaks or walks or whatever in their calendar, they'll be overridden by other people, and then that person allows that to happen. So we have got into like some really unhealthy workplace habits that I think really need some attention.
And what role do business play in creating that good place for mental health? Because I guess personally what I see is they try and help at the end. So they'll do yoga, supplementary benefits, as I call it. So they can see people are stressed, so they give them like free yoga classes or that, instead of going, how can I create a stress reduced work environment? So what role does business play to support their people to create a less stressful environment?
To be honest, I think they feel very similar to the individual kind of teams and employees themselves. They just don't know what to do. I think they are so overwhelmed because they get bombarded every day with like perks and benefits and EAPs and goat yoga and the rest of it, and I don't think they know what to do. So I think, unfortunately, the initiatives and the programs that get in are often, because someone else up the road is doing this. And actually, I've heard lots of people say, we've got an EAP program because at least we're covered. And I don't like that, because I think EAPs have a place, but if they're not actually creating any impact, and if they're only there as a safety net for when people are already at the edge where they might be at risk of leaving or much worse things happening, then we're not doing our jobs. And I think we need to have a proactive approach. And I think that's why my work is becoming more and more in demand, because I think the way that I've created the model is working, and it's a really simple, light way of getting people to A, take responsibility for themselves, and B, actually take some action. You work in the L&D space, how much is wasted. Like, what is it, the stat, 13% of corporate learning is retained after a month, and I'd be surprised if that was even true. So unfortunately, companies goat yoga sounds very fun, and and I make fun of goat yoga a lot, but it's because I was genuinely horrified when I saw a baby goat on someone's back once when I walked into a London office. But I think there's a place. Like, I've got a really good friend who does workplace massages. I think there's a place for all those things, but I remember one marketing agency I work with saying to me, Kat, we've installed this brand new gym in our office in London and no one uses it. And I said, that's because no one has an exercise habit. So rather than building gyms, why don't we create habits, and then we can provide the facilities, or but building a fancy gym is almost like, we can do that. That's so much easier than changing human behavior. And we can spend, millions on that, and then we can tell everyone who we recruit, we've got a fancy gym, and people will probably even be attracted by that, but then they won't actually use it. So I think we need to go towards more human approaches. But I also understand that's difficult, because when you're not Tony Robbins, or you're not, some of the other brands we spoke at earlier, how do they have the trust and the faith to invest in you to know that you're going to be different to some of the other initiatives they've tried?
Yeah, sometimes businesses do cash rich, time poor, and actually they go for the quick option. But it's normally the most expensive option. I build a gym, where actually if we put that money into the time, created those positive habits, and actually created something that the workforce have they've chosen. What we'd really love is a gym space that we can go to. That's coming from them. Again, they're deciding to make that change instead of a change being implemented and going, well, we gave you that gym. Why aren't you happy anymore? Well, actually, we didn't want a gym. We just wanted 10 minutes in a cafeteria where we could have a free, juice or smoothie or that in the morning.
But the other challenge, though, is that I remember going to do this work a little while ago in Germany. So one of my clients is a global client, and they've got offices all around the world. And I can speak German completely randomly, very rusty, but I can speak it. So I delivered the talks in German, and this guy came up to me at the end, and he was a warehouse manager, probably about 35, definitely not in a great place in his life. And he came up to me and he shook my hand and he said, I didn't know I needed that. Thank you. And that's the other challenge, is that you can ask people what they need, but sometimes we don't actually know what we need. So I often find, people in the room, and I can read a room now pretty well, and I can feel sometimes people's energy. They are like nervous, they're like, they feel uncomfortable. They don't know what I'm going to do or what I'm going to say or why they're there. And I just go straight in and address the elephant in the room. And I say to people, I think if I was in your shoes, I wouldn't be remotely interested in what I had to have to say. So I always say to people, don't believe me. Why should you believe me? Why should anyone believe anyone? Try it for yourself. If you tried creating one habit for 21 days and you got absolutely nothing out of it, let me know. It won't happen. I know it won't happen, but I want people to try it for themselves, because when people try it for themselves, they get that good feel factor. They start to see the benefit. They start to see the ripple effect, and they start to realise you're not talking BS.
Tell us a bit more about that then. Let's get into deeper dive into the habits. So talk to us about some of the habits that you implemented that really worked for you, or that you would ask your clients to implement. And then you mentioned 21 days there as well, which is there's a lot of research into that. It's 21 days to build a habit. So tell us a little bit about the habits that you'd encourage, or that you would recommend, or that you've been through, and then the 21 days part of that as well.
So one thing I have to say before I start talking about anything to do with habits is just choose one thing, because one of the dangers that we do as humans is someone will listen to this and go, right, I need to start doing this, and it's like, no, don't do that, just choose one thing. So so my advice for choosing any habit is choose one thing and do it for 10 minutes and do it for 21 days. 21 days scientifically isn't quite long enough, but it's enough time for your brain to think, I can do that. And I've experimented with different lengths of times. I started off with 30 days. It was too long. People found it was just too far in the future. So 21 days is enough to build momentum to carry on. But as you know, there are lots of schools of thoughts on building habits. But again, who cares about that? What I care about is just getting you to start doing it. So you start to, make promises that you've been not keeping all this time. And I prefer to do things in the morning, because I think there's something really special about the morning. If you say to yourself, right, I'm going to start doing an exercise habit, right, I'm going to go to the gym every night. The reality is there's 101 things that will come before that habit that will very likely derail you. So if you do it in the morning, not only do you do it, but also you get all the good off the back of it. Like, it's almost like, I see it like a trampoline, that big spring for the day ahead. So I've been doing a running challenge every day this year for 10 minutes. So I've been running every single day for at least 10 minutes. Sometimes I go for longer, but it's a minimum of 10 minutes. And there's definitely some days where I think, can I be bothered? And I just think, yeah, because it's only 10 minutes and I know how it's going to make me feel. And I've done it in all sorts of weird and wonderful places, as you can imagine, like when I'm traveling and stuff. And I even thought, like, can I run around an airplane once, because I got delayed. I thought, have I got time in between my flights can I run around an airport? Like, is that acceptable? So I've had all sorts of conversations with myself. And obviously running in Saudi Arabia wasn't easy because of the weather, but also other reasons. So, I had to pay to go to a private female gym to run, but I did it because I'm committed to this, because I know how good it makes me feel. So I think most people know exercise is good for you, but most people don't exercise. And they don't exercise for lots of reasons, connotations being one of them, time is another big reason. But if you were out walking in the pandemic, then you can walk for 10 minutes. And I know people that do fake commutes. So if they work from home, they pretend they're still going to work. So exercise is probably one of the most profound habits that I've started, and is now part of who I am. I'm somebody who does that.
Just to add to that is that you actually build up some excitement around it. So I'm in a place now, and having watched and listening to you, it's nice confirmation for me that what I'm doing is working and on a big scale. But I'm actually excited to get up in the morning now, like ready. Like my alarm goes off, I'm like, yeah, get me out of bed. And if I wake up in the middle of the night, and you're not supposed to look at your clock or phone in the night because that distracts you from your sleep. But if you look at that and you're like, I've got a couple of hours left to sleep, and you're like, well, that's okay, because then I get to get up and I get to go and do this fun stuff that has so many benefits to it. And it's, I think we're advocating exercise. However, it's about finding what works for you as an individual.
Yeah. But exercise could be dancing around your kitchen.
Yeah.
So I just recorded a 10-minute solo episode last week on this, that one lady I worked with, she's got an autistic son, and she just said, like, the mornings are absolute hell. They're a nightmare. He doesn't want to go to school. He's all right once he's in school, but it can take up to 3 hours. And imagine then, like, the impact on both of them. Like, it's horrendous. And then the first thought they both have is, oh my God, like, I've got to get him ready for school, and he's thinking, I've got to go to school. So she came and listened to talk, and she said, I'm going to do something that I didn't think I was going to do, and I'm going to create a habit with him, and it's going to be, we're going to choose a song each morning. We're going to take it in turns to choose a song, and we're going to dance around the kitchen. And then I saw her again, because I do a follow-up with a lot of my teams, and she said it's literally been life-changing, because now they both wake up and think about the song and whose turn it is, and that they're going to get to dance and have fun. And I just think, for me, like that, and it doesn't have to be like about an autistic son. It's like anyone could do that and feel like incredible. Because we know that music can change, literally our energy, how we feel, like everything. For me personally, dancing around the kitchen isn't something that I really get excited about, but I can totally see why that works for them. So if you forget the word exercise and just think about move your body, right? It could be walking, it could be running, it could be cycling, it could be swimming, it could be dancing, it could be stretching, like 10 minutes of Joe Wicks, if you like him, whatever. Like, because I really believe there's something for everyone, and I believe it's only us that's stopping us, all those previous self-limiting beliefs. But it could also be painting. It could be gardening. It could be sitting in your garden, just having 10 minutes of nothingness. And that almost doesn't feel like it's going to create any good, because you're not doing anything. But then when are you ever not doing anything? Never. So actually you get some space for some thoughts, or to make some realizations, or some decisions.
It's so important, isn't it, that you talked about the small change, the 10 minutes, loads of people, New Year's comes around and suddenly they're changing their whole life because actually I need to change. And by the middle of January, they've all dropped off. Is because they're huge changes that they're looking to make. And actually, as you just done with that story about that lady, it's sometimes just looking at our life, how it currently is, and going, what tweak can I make? Because where can exercise fit in? Actually, I'm not only getting exercise by doing that dance, I'm having a fantastic time with someone that I love more than anything in the world. How great is that, by just making that small change, by coming to listen to you? That's amazing. And I think it's those little changes that you can go, not only could I be healthier, but I could spend that little bit of time with my child or my wife or a friend, and we can do this and we do that. and I'm going to feel better at it, and it's going to hit me up for the day. Just hit so many of those buckets that can improve and start someone's day on that real high.
Imagine there are a set of dominoes in front of us now, and the first domino is the dance, and then imagine knocking all the dominoes over. And now I think to myself, right, if she goes into her workplace and she has a meeting, a difficult conversation with another colleague, imagine the way that that's going to come across. Imagine a client then she goes and delivers a service to, a complaint that she deals with. And this is the whole reason why I'm doing this, because I think we are in this kind of pandemic of people waking up in autopilot. They're not mentally and physically ready for the day. So we're actually living on borrowed time. And if you think about your body like an energy bank account, you're on like the red or you're on empty. And most people, even I've talked to some really senior people, especially recently. I can remember one event where they were laughing and smiling over all the cocktails and the canapes. When we got in the room, it was a different story, because actually some of the people who look like they're most high performing are the ones who are on the edge. And everything in between. And like, even if you're not on the edge, even if you feel quite in a good place, how do you stay in a good place? So this is relevant to everybody. And I think that story of her dancing, and I just think if I was her boss or I was a colleague, you would feel that in many different ways. And then if you think you're the teacher of the boy, or you're the head teacher, or you're his classmate, like, this is the ripple effect.
I was thinking that the beauty of that, the picking a song each and then dancing around to that. What I love about it, it's so simple, but it's genius.
Yeah,
like you've just explained there, the ripple effect is huge on the rest of your day from such a simple thing. And I think, again, that's the message that certainly I would give, that it's about finding the thing that works for you. And it doesn't... I don't want to speak for you, Kat. You can correct me if I'm wrong, but try it. Try doing that. And if that doesn't work after 21 days, if it doesn't sit and it doesn't quite feel right, don't give up. Try something else, because you said there's something for everyone out there, which I totally agree with. Some people love going for a run. Some people, my wife's uncle is a retired GP. He goes and sits in the garden 10-15 minutes every morning, has his cup of tea out there, nothing else going on, just sitting there, birds are singing and sun's coming up and whatever it might be. And there's a lot of science around being around sort of blue-green spaces as well, but just removing all that noise.
Yeah.
And that works for him.
Yeah, but we need to challenge the idea that we've all been sold, which is speed equals success, because I think there's this, that life is so fast now. There's this pressure the minute you wake up to be productive, to go into, I think parents, especially working parents, can feel this, but I think we all feel this, and that is partially due to the amount of information we're consuming and the messages we're consuming. But actually, I look back over my career and I think I was successful, but I wasn't sustainably successful. Now I'm sustainably successful. And however you define success, I will always have this, I don't know if balance is the right word, but I will always be able to maintain this lovely life that I have created because of my habits. And I say to people when I'm talking on stages that I'm 43 and I'm the happiest and healthiest I've ever been because of these habits. And sometimes it makes me feel physically sick when I think about ever going back to like reaching for my phone first thing, or the way that I used to operate. But it is hard, because even when she came up with that idea of dancing, I almost felt myself wanting to say, oh, but that's not really a proper habit. because for me, it wasn't something I would do. And actually, the reason why I love working with teams and why it's so powerful is because they come up with stuff that I wouldn't have come up with. And so, and then, of course, they can hold each other accountable. So we also put people into accountability buddies, which works really well. And we do lots of things to help people stick to their habits. But yeah, that one has stuck with me. Another one also, which is really lovely. So this was a deputy head teacher. So So we were talking about running, and she said, oh yeah, I used to love running. And actually I remember once my head teacher greeted me in the morning when she walked into school, and he said, you've been for a run, haven't you? And there was no indication, she'd obviously already done a run, got dressed and come to school. So it wasn't like she turned up in Lycra or anything. And he could just tell. And then I said to her, how many times have you been running this year? And she said, once. And I said, how come? And she said, because I don't have time. So now we kind of put the 10-minute idea in, gave her permission, and she's like, okay, now I can run more regularly. But imagine the impact on the kids that she's teaching if she's been for a run. Like, it's just... Yeah, I'll never get bored of talking about this. Hopefully you're not bored yet.
And I think the most important word, and probably an underused word in both individually and in business, is sustainability. We're always looking for the now. We always go, we've done that habit, but don't feel different after 21 days. It's like, yeah, but how different could you feel after 3 months, after 6 months? Create those habits that you can see yourself doing in a year's time. As a business, my last quarter was great. That's great. But in 3 years' time, what's it going to look like? It's creating that sustainable change. It's creating that sustainable growth, that sustainable improvement, that continuous improvement effect as well, that has that, I guess, compound interest effect. Yeah. We can, if you start today, in 3 months' time, you'll feel the benefit. If you wait 3 months, you're not going to feel the benefit in 3 months as well.
Yeah, but also another kind of thing that we struggle with is that we're looking for that return on investment, whether that's on a personal or professional level, quickly, and if we don't get it, we're just going to give up. So I think another good habit I think that I've seen has really transformed my mindset has been getting in cold water. So that's obviously living by the sea, that makes it a little bit easier, but geez, during the winter, that is tough. If you can get in the sea, in the dark, with all the waves and everything telling you not to, the cold, the wind, the rain, if you can get in the sea for 5 minutes, you can do absolutely anything. And that's the thing. And I think for me, a lot of the habits, like the dancing is fun and it's enjoyable, and you can see how that would stick really easily. But doing something like getting into the sea, or doing an ice bath, or going for a run, or doing something that's a lot harder physically and mentally, that takes some discipline. But then for me, that how you stick to it is then by thinking about how you're going to feel after. How's that going to impact you? And also, what kind of person do you want to be? Like, I've always prided myself on being a person that says they're going to do what they say they're going to do. And I like to be around people who say that. And so, if you make those commitments to yourself, you then are that person. And then you're role modeling, like you said earlier, to your children or whoever's in your life, that you are somebody that values.
Yeah, commitment is a huge thing for me, whether that's in personal life. Me, if I say I'm going to do something, I'll do it and I'll stick to it. That agreement with meeting up with someone or whatever that might be. Through all the years I've spent coaching rugby, I want committed players in my team. The best players, yeah, of course you want great players in your team, but I'd rather have someone that's committed to the cause. And it's the same, any teams that I've managed, in the workplace and organisations I've been involved in, the commitment is absolutely key. Like, you buy into it, and we absolutely, we have to create their culture as leaders. We need to be able to create that culture, but those values of commitment are vital, because if you're not going to commit to the habit, it's not going to stick. And again, I come back to, there's got to be, you said right at the start, it's about that purpose, isn't it? And find your why behind something.
And I follow you on LinkedIn, and I'd recommend everyone follow you on LinkedIn, because I think what you're able to show is, there's pictures of you on a run and doing some of those habits and, doing some of your talks, but actually you don't shy away from sometimes how hard it is to carry on those habits. What advice do you give people that, you're showing them the full picture? You're not just saying they're great, it's a benefit, it's sometimes hard. What advice do you give those people that when that loud voice in their head's going, it's too cold to get in the sea today, how to overcome that?
Can I just add into that as well, that I'm sure some of the objections you would get is, I'm not a morning person.
Yeah, I get that all the time.
I don't have time. How do we overcome that?
Well, I'm also not a morning person, so how do you explain that? And I get up at 5 every day. I think these are just stories we tell ourselves, and I think you can do one of two things. You can either hold on to the story and let that sabotage you and path your way in life, or you can say, is that true? And I read this thing once, which was take your thoughts to court. So, for example, if you're about to get in the sea, or you're about to go on a run, or you should be reading but you want to reach for your phone, whatever it is, you're trying to do something good, but your brain is trying to tell you it's basically sabotaging you. Then I do a few things. Well, the first one is that just make it really simple and really small and really easy to start with. So if you're not somebody who's good in cold water, like, don't go by yourself, like, and try and stay in there for like 20 minutes. Find people. Like, accountability and support and community is massive in habits. So that, do something that is low barrier to entry. Because if you don't succeed in the first instance, then it's could really put you off. So that's the first thing. And then I think noticing the thoughts, right? So the thoughts come up are, I'm tired, I can't be bothered, I haven't got time, this is too hard, the water's going to be really cold, what if I'm missing something on my phone? And just allow those thoughts to just be there and ask them, how true are they? And then, like, for example, with cold water, of course it's going to be cold, it's the sea, but... how is it going to feel once, all of you are in there and you're having a nice chat? And how are you going to feel when you come out? How did you feel last time you came out? So it's almost like having that conversation with those thoughts in your mind. And I think the more present you can be, and for me, writing down my thoughts has allowed me space to be present, as well as having good habits around my phone, because that is the number one thing that's stealing your attention, of course, your ability to be present. I think all these things help you build positive habits and actually stick to them. The other rule I have is living by 80-20. So if you miss one day, like, just let it go. Sometimes you just don't want to do it. You're tired. You give yourself a pass. It's life. It doesn't matter. Just don't do it the next day.
And that's so important. And that's something probably I've been guilty of in the past, is not giving myself that leeway of going, today I just can't be, I just don't want to do it. And, or when I'm on holidays going, I've got to try and keep these habits up. Actually, it's fine. It's Christmas Day. You're on holiday. Just give yourself a break and the mental release from it. But probably in return, don't supplement that with them bad habits, because that's you very quickly spiral back into where you were by going, I'm on holiday, that's fine, I can just completely not worry about food.
I think that's an interesting paradigm, isn't it? Because I think we also are role modeled that on holiday you get 2 weeks free pass and you can eat and drink whatever you want and lie down as much as you want, and it kind of really baffles me that's how we've been shown that's what holidaying is. And I think, now I go into holidays and long weekends, and, when my routine is not as in control of it, or I'm traveling, I just, I have kind of micro versions of things, and I just don't beat myself up about it. But I think one of the biggest things I would recommend people to do, if they haven't done already, if they're trying to get control over some habits, is actually raise your awareness of them. So if it's to do with food, just track what you eat for a week. And I remember doing this some time ago with a PT, and he was like, oh, do you reckon you eat quite well then? And do you reckon you do a lot of steps? And I was like, yeah, definitely. And of course, I was completely in cuckoo land, because I wasn't. But I had convinced myself. You told me that I was eating well and I was walking a lot. Yeah, I've got a dog, I'm out twice a day. Of course I'm eating well and I'm walking a lot. And he made me track it. And I didn't think anything of it. I was like, yeah, I'm fine. And then I tracked it and realised I had no clue actually what I was putting in my body. I had no idea of the nutritional value of the things I was eating. For example, the Domino's pot of sauce. Not very nutritional, should I say. But what was interesting about it is, when he forced me to do that, I was like, wow, it's really opened my eyes to food. Now I can't look at food in a different way. It doesn't mean I don't eat pizza anymore, because I do. It doesn't mean, you can't still have the sugary lattes you love, or if you like a glass of wine, whatever. But I make such better choices now, like 80% of the time. And the same with movement. Like, I thought I was, hitting my steps, and, I used to sort of sporadically exercise. But in reality, I was driving to like the park, letting my dog off the lead and hanging around the coffee van, chatting to people. So I wasn't actually getting hardly any steps in. But in my head, I was going out twice a day doing that. So I was definitely walking 10,000 steps. So I think we also are really good at telling lies to ourselves and tricking ourselves. And the harsh reality, when you put it on paper, you can't. If you write down how you actually feel, like, I don't feel great in my body, or I'm not happy in my relationship, or I don't like my job, or I don't like where I live, then all of a sudden you can't escape from that, can you? Because now it's kind of true, and you've got to do something about it. But then, of course, that's where the opportunity is, because why would you not want to be happy? You get one life, right?
And that's quite a scary place, though, isn't it? To get to that point where you suddenly realise all this stuff that suddenly I've been pushing sort of some of the blame off sits with me. And that means I've got to now hold my account to account to make those changes as well. It's quite a scary place for...
It is scary. And we are really good at deflecting, and we're good at being defensive as human beings and I think we meet people in life that will hold up mirrors for us, and we don't want to look in those mirrors. We'd quite like to happily just be living in this, unconscious bubble. But I don't think I think when you start to be conscious and unlock all this, that's when you get to live this incredible life, this really happy, healthy, exciting, high-performing life, which it has no limits. I think that's what I came here for. And I certainly didn't come here for, an average life. And I don't want to wake up every day and feel tired and be stressed constantly and be in a relationship I don't want to be in and be in a job I don't like. I don't think I think we have to do sometimes, jobs that we don't want to do to get to our next point in life. I mean, I've certainly done a lot of those, but I think you have to find the difference between when you're lying to yourself and when you're just giving yourself a bit of a break, because they sometimes feel the same.
Fantastic. Kat, can you give us your top 3 leadership sound bites? What are your top 3 takeaways from today?
I think the first one is, if you don't already know it, maybe you need to just pick up the phone to me, but connecting the dots between your habits and your workplace performance, your individual performance, but also that of your team. I think that is the number one thing that is so important. Like, it was this whole thing before, like, leave your personal life at the door. Like, it just, especially now, the way our world has changed and the way we work. If you haven't already connected the dots, let me help you connect the dots today. Like, what you are doing outside of work is affecting work and vice versa. And I think our habits are affecting our performance way more than we've ever realised. I think the second thing is you've got to focus on yourself. You've got to, sometimes I get invited in to speak to teams and I notice that the leaders are not in the room. And sometimes they say to me, oh, well, I don't want my employees to feel like I'm watching them or anything. I'm like, everything I do is anonymous. I use a live and anonymous voting tool. I promise you, people will still feel like they can share. I will facilitate that space. And I think sometimes there's a fear of leaders of like, this isn't for me, or like, if I show vulnerability, it's going to make me look weak across my team. And I speak to loads of leaders about their habits, and I always encourage them to share them, because actually that's what makes you human, and that's what builds connection, and that's what builds trust. So if you're a leader who's been through a journey of habits yourself and now is doing something good for yourself, tell your team you used to sink 12 bottles of wine at the weekend and now you only have a couple of beers because this is what happened to you and this is why you've changed it. Tell people that. And no one has a conversation about snoozing, do they? I mean, like, people just don't. Why would we? We're not going to talk about that. But why can't we start to normalise talking about the stuff that's actually impacting our ability to function as human beings? And I think The third thing, if you haven't already thought about bringing me into your organisation, of course, that would be an obvious thing to do. But I think the third thing is just to maybe stop looking for shiny objects, tech, tools, facilities, one-off things. I mean, one of the reasons I've built out like an entire program now that's platform facilitated is because I know habits are not created overnight. They take time. And I think it's much better to work with people who've experienced it firsthand than, I think sometimes companies want to bring in like researchers and experts, and actually what people buy from people want someone they can relate to. And don't get me wrong, like motivational speaking is a funny old world. There are some great speakers out there, but I've never listened to a motivational speaker that's made me do anything differently in my life. And that's why I don't brand myself a motivational speaker, because I actually want people to leave being around me, whether that's because they're in my sea dipping group or they've heard me speak on a stage or I'm working in their team. I want people to leave thinking differently and doing something differently. That for me is profound. I think motivational speaking has got to change. Like, it can't just be someone telling their story that is, for the most part, completely unrelatable to the average human being.
We're so aligned with that. It's about it. We talk about it on our courses, for example, that anyone can come sit in a room for 2 days, but what are you doing off the back of it? It's taking that responsibility for your actions, like put things into action. And like you said earlier on, it doesn't need to be something huge and grand. They're just those small habits can make a huge difference, and the ripple effect will be felt for a long time.
And it's just to finish on, nothing changes if nothing changes. So I think going back to that 10 minutes, challenge everyone to find those 10 minutes to make that positive change.
Yeah. And I was thinking that as I was driving here today, I was thinking, I've forgotten now, because there was a while where I was saying, oh, this is day 30, this is day 60, this is day 74. And now I'm like, I don't even know what day I'm on, because it's just become, it's now not if, it's when am I going to do the run? And I love, like you said, I kind of get excited about it now. And I love it. And I think, am I going to run by the beach? Am I going to go to the park? Am I going to take the dog? And I've had my 6-year-old niece living with me for the last 2 months. So, she's not as interested in running as I am, but we've made a game out of it. So she picks the posts, the like markers where I run to. And okay, Strava looks absolutely crazy at the moment, but it doesn't matter. We're still getting it done, and it's fun, and we're spending time together. And I've also had to let go of the 10 minutes being like looking a certain way and people judging my Strava, and just getting over it and just enjoying it for what it is. But for me now, it's like, I don't want it to be a habit that isn't. It's just part of my life. I just do a 10-minute run every day, on top of other things.
Yeah, amazing. Kat, thank you so much. You are an incredibly inspirational person. Genuine. I'm absolutely genuine with that. And I think there's so much to be taken away from what you've said and your messaging around it. Just for a wrap up, just how do people contact you?
Yeah, LinkedIn or Instagram, or I've got a YouTube channel. My website is katthorne.com, and The Morning Game Changer. So come find me. Amazing. Do it. Speak to Kat. Thank you very much to you two for coming on the show. Thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure. Really great. Yeah, absolute pleasure. And thank you to listening as well. And we'll see you next time on Sound Leadership Podcast. The Sound Leadership Podcast was produced by Media First. To learn more about the media crisis and communications training, visit mediafirst.co.uk. The editor and producer was Darren Wingham. The show was hosted, written and researched by me, Dan Boniface. A special thanks to all the team at Media First and the BCF Group for supporting the development of this podcast. To learn more about the management, leadership, training and coaching that the BCF Group offer, visit thebcfgroup.co.uk or get in touch by emailing hello@thebcfgroup.co.uk. Finally, a special thanks to our exceptional guest today, who you can contact via the BCF Group.